Dagwajin, Fall. Chapter 5 Fishtail's Pipe. Now, in the mornings, there was a sharp freshness in the air. Omakakins loved this time of the year and jumped from her blankets eagerly, rolled her sleeping mat and her fur blanket, and put them away quickly so that she could help rekindle the outdoor cooking fire. Her crow hopped after her. Though it could fly short distances, its wings hadn't healed yet. Ondeg, the Anishinaabe word for crow, was its name. Nokomis was fond of Ondeg. The bird often rode on her shoulder and kept her company as she packed dry fish, repaired nets, wove new mats, and alongside Omakakins tanned hides they needed for new winter clothing, jackets, makazanon, mittens, hoods. Omakakins used the gun barrel flesher, Day-Day's gift. She didn't like the work any better than she ever had, but Ondeg's lively company helped. Ondeg even frightened off an owl and once perched on the head guard of baby Niwu's cradle board. Crack, crack loudly and repeatedly until Mama came running to find a curious raccoon trying to steal from the bundles of dried fish and venison she was preparing to cache. Ondeg quickly became everybody's favorite, but the crow slept only near Omakakins. He fell asleep just at dusk, perching low on a branch she had tied into the side of the ribs of the birchbark house. Day-Day spent a few warm fall days making repairs on his canoe, and then it was time for him to leave again. He would make one last big trip before the cold rains, and then the harsh snow slashed down. Once he stopped gathering and selling the furs of the other Anishinaabe, he would go out on his own trap line. For the rest of the late fall and winter, he would be home and gone, and each time he returned, Omakakins thought, with a sinking stomach, he would be hauling back skins for her to work on. One afternoon, his friends and partners came to visit and make their plans. Albert Lapoitre and Fishtail came walking through the woods. When Angeline and Omakakins saw the men coming, they decided to hide and quickly dived into the heavy stand of bush. Peeking between weedy stalks, they had a good view. Albert was round as a kettle with his big teeth stuck out pleasantly when he grinned. He fancied himself quite a medicine man and wore at his throat a circle of bear claws. Next to him walked the tall, handsome Fishtail. He had strikingly long, thick, oiled black hair and a hawk-thin face with a proud curl to his lips. He carried his pipe in the cradle of his left arm close to his heart. It was a fancy pipe made of a piece of sumac wood marked with the sweet grain. Bands along the stem were carefully beaded in black and yellow. Fishtail took extremely good care of his pipe, cleaned it often, prayed with it every sunrise. To him, it was a living thing. The bowl was red pipestone in the shape of an otter's head, his clan. Dark blue pony heads hung down a swatch of fringe, and Fishtail touched them carefully and lovingly as he stepped quietly along. Mikwam came out along the path to meet his friends, and the men talked and joked before they had made themselves comfortable, sitting on blankets on the ground. Omakakin saw her father open up his leather pouch of a sema. Fishtail lit the pipe, and the fragrance of burning red willow tobacco hung peacefully in the air. Each man, as he drew in the smoke, wore a look of concentrated and peaceful attention. The pipe passed around the circle twice before any of the men said a word. What they said made Omakakins and Angeline creep closer, listen more carefully. Hidden in the grass and the underbrush, they breathed quietly and opened their ears to catch the lower tones of the men's voices. "Gichi Mukaman," said Fishtail in a growling tone of indignation. The word meant big knife, and it was used to describe the non-Indian or white people who were traveling in larger numbers than ever to Ojibwa land and setting down their cabins, forts, barns, gardens, pastures, fences, fur trading posts, churches, and mission schools. LaPointe was becoming more Gichi-Mukaman every day, and there was talk of sending the Anishibag to the west. They say we must leave the island, Fishtail went on. No one commented. Curled against the itching nettle leaves, Omakakins eased her hand to her leg and scratched. She scratched silently and kept listening. That's right, her father said at last, contempt in his voice. That's what they are saying, the useless ones. Albert Lepoitre drew on the pipe and frowned, tamping and adjusting the tobacco burning in the bowl. He drew deep and puffed hard. He was part French, like Day-Day, but browner than Fishtail. His eyes were greenish-brown. His round, cheerful face beamed. He sighed, and with a faraway look, said that he had a vision. Fishtail and Day-Day looked blankly and patiently at him when he said this, for Lepoitre was known for recounting visions and dreams that had very little meaning, though they seemed to affect him hugely. Now he looked down sternly, gathering his thoughts. Suddenly he blurted out, I dreamed I had lice! In the brush, Angelino Mockakins clapped their hands over their mouth to stifle their glee. Day-Day and Fishtail managed to keep straight faces, but Omakakins was sure she saw the corner of Day-Day's mouth twitch. Albert Lepoitre sighed. The meaning is unclear, he muttered. Let us find the meaning, said Day-Day. His voice was serious, but the girls both knew that he was having fun with Lepoitre. Was anything else happening in your dream? Lepoitre frowned, as though he was overcome with the weight of his vision. Yes, he said, we were planning a dance gathering. Ah, said Father, the meaning now becomes clear. This was a deep dream indeed. What? Lepoitre said, breathless. From now on, when you dance, Father said, without allowing a trace of a smile, you will dance hard enough to shed your lice. Yes? Lepoitre's voice was suspicious, but neither Day-Day nor Fishtail let on any sign that Father's interpretation was a joke. Perhaps, said Lepoitre, I should tell you my own thoughts. And then, to Angelino Omakakin's surprise and dismay, he told the other men that he was thinking of taking his family, all 10 of his children, his uncles and grandmas and grandpas, to a western post where, he had heard, government payments were made. Omakakins nudged Angeline. Those children were their friends. To think that they might have to leave. Omakakins nearly cried out, but Angeline poked her to be quiet. All of the Ojibwa would be safe on their own land farther west, Albert was saying. No one to bother them. Yes, there would be hazards on the way, Dakota war parties, hunger, the threat of winter's dire weather. He'd rather not go. Still, said jolly Albert, he had moved before when the waves of white people lapped his feet. West, always west, said Day-Day, agreeing slowly. We wear the Gichi-Mukaman axe rings in the woods, chopping a tree. We should be gone before the trees fall. We have to stop somewhere someday, Fishtail drew thoughtfully on the pipe, and a fragrant smoke clouded his face. West is where the spirits of the dead walk. If the whites keep chasing us west, we'll end up in the land of the spirits. I have dreams that that's where they want us to go anyway, said Albert. That will please them. Nothing will ever please them for long, said Day-Day. Although his grandfather had been French, he was raised and considered himself Ojibwa and kept the rules of his mother's duodem or clan, the Fish Clan. Only in the Gichi-Mukaman things, his cabin for instance, and his ability to play and win the white man's game of chess with the traitor, did he take secret pride. Not until they have it all, said Fishtail, all of our lands. Our wild rice beds, hunting grounds, fishing streams, gardens. Not even when we are gone and they have the bones of our loved ones will they be pleased. I have thought about this. Fishtail put up his head and held it there, looked keenly at his friends. Before they were born, before they came to this world, the Gichi-Mukaman must have starved as ghosts. They are infinitely hungry. The men smoked with increased intensity, looking deep into the fire as the breeze came up and dusk lowered. Day Day was thoughtful, his eyes deep and clouded. Even Willapwatra looked serious, the dimples set hard in his cheeks. Watching in the bushes, Omakakins and Angeline waited for them to resume their talks. But that day, mulling over Fishtail's difficult words perhaps, the men kept their silence.